Hey Photo World, welcome back to another episode here on takeandtalkpics.com. This is another episode from the former podcast. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join the email list. Let's get to that 1,000 subscriber marker so that way I can add a new video every single week. Enjoy. Hey Photo World, takeandtalkpics.com. I'm Rob Kruger, and it is time to crush it with episode 36 and photographer Nick Page.
I'm catering to my ADD because I don't want to burn out on anyone. I'm deathly afraid of painting myself into a corner with my photography.
Hey Photo World, today's featured guest is Nick Page. Nick, are you ready to rock?
Let's do it.
All right. Nick is a freelance photographer based out of Dayton, Washington, and he specializes in weddings, portraits, architecture, and fine art landscapes. He is a co-host to the weekly Portrait Session podcast, a regular guest host on the Improve for Photography podcast, and contributor to the Photo Taco podcast. All this, and he still manages to conduct workshops and make amazing artwork. Nick, welcome to Take and Talk Pics.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I'm honored. So thank you.
For sure. It's a pleasure having you and getting your story out to Photo World and talking about what you do as a photographer. I know you have tons to say when you're contributing to these podcasts and talking photography, helping educate, but we want to kind of break down your story and your career. And as we dive into this, can you introduce yourself further? Because I barely scratched the surface.
Well, I'm listening to sirens in the background. That'll be great. So I guess I shoot a lot of different things, and part of that is because I'm in such a small market. Dayton, Washington is a very small town, and we're surrounded by slightly larger towns, but not huge towns. So part of the reason I shoot such a variety of things is because it takes quite a few photos to pay the bills. When you're in a small market, you can't charge large market prices. That, and I have a slight case of ADD, and I'm deathly afraid of painting myself into a corner when it comes to my photography. I want to be able to shoot it all. I want to be like Rick Salmon and specialize in not specializing. So, I shoot a lot of different things. Like you said, I shoot weddings, portraits, real estate, and I would say one of my biggest passions is nature photography. I love to travel and point my camera at beautiful things. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, and the beautiful things are really well displayed on your website. I mean, there's just a ton of great stuff, and the variety, of course, showing what you do. Can you get us started off with a little inspiration? What kind of keeps you going, like a mantra or a quote that you live by for your business?
Well, in the words of Hunter S. Thompson, my life guru, not really, he said, anything worth doing is worth doing right. And I'm a firm believer in that. If you're going to do something, do it all the way. There's a lot of mediocre people out there, just in general, and I've always had this fear of being mediocre. So anything that I take on, I'm going to do it all the way. Before I was a photographer, I was a musician, and I was the type of musician that would practice 6 hours a day to get better. And that's really the only way you can set yourself apart from all the other photographers out there, because there's millions of them, literally millions of photographers. And the only way you're going to set yourself apart is to just be awesome. So you have to really dedicate yourself to being as good as you can be. And so that's kind of where I come from.
I've always had a fear of being mediocre. I love that quote, that idea, because if we're okay with getting by and in the middle ground, there's nothing wrong with that. You can do it just fine. But like you said, it's not going to set you apart. And
exactly,
if you're afraid of it and willing to face that fear, which is the hardest part, then you're always going to improve. And I think that's phenomenal. I mean, that's fantastic. So when we're talking, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like there's a lot of people that are content with working for the man and going to their job that they don't really love, and then coming home watching Monday Night Football and drinking heavily and just trying to get through the week. And you're living your entire week for your weekend. And we're lucky enough when we're photographers, we get to live for every day. We're excited about every day because we do what we love. And not only do we need to acknowledge that and acknowledge how lucky we are to have the awesome job that we do,
Hmm.
but we need to use ourselves as an example for all the other people to show that we can not only do what we love to do, but we can strive to be better and see how far you can take this thing, or whatever your life pursuit is. Just see how far you can take it and run with it, and try not to be afraid of failure.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, no, we do get to do what we love, and that passion is a great thing. And speaking to that point, what got you started? What was the drive that made you pick up the camera and say, I'm going to pursue this as a career?
Well, it really wasn't that long ago. In 2012, I was working as a golf course greenskeeper, and I herniated a disc in my back, and I was in such severe nerve pain that I was completely bedridden. I couldn't walk. I couldn't make my own meals. I mean, my life for a month and a half until I had surgery was spent either in bed because it hurt too bad to walk to the couch, or I would walk to the couch and I would spend my days there. So the first couple days of that, I was watching reruns of shows and just miserable because I knew that, my life was just on hold. And for whatever reason, I got the inspiration to start watching video and video tutorials on YouTube about photography and videography because I was interested in video as well. So for a month and a half, I laid on my couch. I didn't own a DSLR. I had a point and shoot camera, and I just watched nothing but photography and videography tutorials on YouTube. And by the time I had my surgery and I was starting to recover and I had a few bucks, I bought my first DSLR, and that was in October of that year. And within a year and 3 months, things had taken off so much for me that I was forced to quit my day job. And it's kind of interesting. This is a little bit of a side note, but it's interesting how sometimes those curveballs that life throws us that are, not what we would have picked for ourselves at all. It seems like this dark, terrible thing that happened to us, and these awesome, amazing things come out of it. And that's a perfect example of it in my life. By going through that month and a half of just agony, I ended up taking off in a photography career that I had never envisioned myself doing. So that was how I got into photography. And I've always been a very obsessive person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the type of person that, like, when I get into something, I completely immerse myself in it.
Right.
And I did that with photography, and it's amazing because of all the knowledge and resources that are out there with tutorials and educational websites and stuff. The only bottleneck in how fast you can learn it is the amount of time you're willing to dedicate to it. So, for that first year, I didn't watch TV. I watched tutorials, and that's part of what, get sped up my process in learning photography.
Yeah, I mean, how many of us go through things like that and it's just the worst, but then once you come out of it, you look back and you realize, oh my gosh, that was such a turning point in my life, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it now. It sucked
Yeah.
then, but I'm grateful for it now.
Mhm.
And I think that happens to all of us. And if it doesn't, start looking back, photo world, analyze what brought you here, what inspired you, what changed, and that might help motivate you to continue forward.
Absolutely.
As we're pushing forward, we're running these businesses, and that's the most annoying part. It's not always difficult, but it's not always easy. And as we're running our photography business, can you recall a time where you had to learn the hard way, where something didn't work out, a little failure moment, and you're better for it now?
I've had lots of those little failure moments. It's my personality type is I'm obsessed with the art and the technical parts of it, and I'm really into that. And then the business side is like, I'll figure that out later. And that kind of mentality wasn't the best for getting my business up and running. And I had lots of those times where I didn't want to take deposits for things, and then people would flake out on me at the last minute and like, oh, I guess I don't have a shoot today. Thanks for that, guys.
Mm.
I'll just pay my rent with this imaginary money that you didn't give me. And I learned the hard way, that side of things. Ordering products before they were paid for, and then the people flake out on that. So it was kind of surprising to me, because I hadn't ever really been a business owner. It was surprising to me how many people out there just don't really care about about you or your livelihood,
Right, right.
or putting your kids through college or buying them food. There's a lot of people that just don't care about others, and and so I had to learn the hard way that those deposits and stuff like that, it's actually an important part of a business. And it wasn't an easy thing for me to learn, just because of my personality type. I'm the easygoing guy that's like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. I know you. We'll take care of it. I want to give you a deal, and that came back to bite me quite a bit. But I'm learning.
Well, we all are. I mean, how many times do we get burned before we realize it's time for a change? We do get burned, and we got to move forward from that. And maybe that's the understanding that you want to give to Photo World in this next question, but it might be something different, so I'll let you decide. But we do have a wide range of photographers listening. So, Nick, could you please share with Photo World one thing you think would lead to growth and success in a photography business, regardless of their current level?
Gotcha. For me, like, it's kind of something that I apply to every photo shoot I do. I get all the safe shots. I do the photo shoot. And if I'm liking the couple, or if I'm liking the location, obviously I do so many different types of photo shoots. This could apply to landscape, engagements, senior portraits, whatever.
Mm.
You do the photo shoot, and then if you're feeling it, you try to take it to the next level, and you experiment, and you take that time to do something you haven't done before. And essentially what I try to do is I try to make every photo shoot just a little bit better than the one before it. I take what I know from my previous photo shoots and my previous successes and failures, and then I build on that. And then I'm like, okay, well, this time we're going to bust out some serious lighting here, and just try to take it to a place that you haven't taken it before. Just using each photo shoot you do as a step to the next one, and ideally steps go up and you get better. So that's what I try to do, is just make every photo shoot a little bit better than the one before. And if we're talking landscape photography, this could be, putting the extra effort into being there when the weather is right. You've shot a location many times, but have you ever shot it with a thunderstorm rolling in? Or have you ever shot it in the middle of a epic sunrise or sunset? Or have you ever shot it with the Milky Way? And there's always something you can do to just kind of one up the photo shoot you did before. So that's one of the things I try to do.
Yeah, those steps. I mean, we do trip sometimes, but taking those steps is not a bad approach, because you can't just leap to the next thing and assume it's going to work out. When you do that, that's usually when it's the hardest thing, or really difficult. But
yeah, and we've learned so much more from the failures than we do from our successes.
Right.
That's the thing, is people who are afraid of the failure, they're often the ones that are afraid to go to that highest level of success, because in order to get there, you have to fall on your face a lot of times. And it's the people that are like, oh, well, I fell, but I learned this.
Yeah.
Those are the people that really take it all the way. And with photography, especially, you learn so much more from a failure in a photo shoot than you do in a success, because every picture you take is beautiful, like, you're not going to be motivated to improve.
Right.
But if you miss a first kiss, you're suddenly super motivated to improve. Like that.
Yeah.
There's not much more motivation for improvement than a really angry bride. So just those failures are really the catalyst for improvement. So don't be afraid of them. Embrace them and learn from them.
Yeah, we had Lee Morris from F Stoppers on the show last month, And he said something to that effect where it was like, go ahead. Don't be afraid to try it. So just do it. Go ahead and fail, accept the failure, move on, and take what you can from it. And then go and try something else. Because seriously, there's no point in wasting your time sitting on feeling down about yourself or being too afraid to go anywhere, because then you never do anything. So, I mean, it's all the same kind of stuff you're saying. I think it's really important that photo world understands that and commits it to their memory of, this is what I got to do as my approach as a photographer, because it's business at the end of the day, combined with passion. So we kind of start to take things personally when we shouldn't, and you have to find the line and walk that just ever so carefully and move forward,
Yeah, that's the interesting part of what we do is this combination of business and art. And anytime art is involved, you feel personally wrapped up in it. Yeah. And it's so easy to take that criticism personal, because this is my art, man. Yeah. This is what I do. Like, can't tear me down. Like, it's really hard. And it's the same thing with music. I used to be a musician, like I said, and if somebody criticizes your music, it hurts. It hits you right here in the chest. So it's interesting, because we have to improve and we have to cater to our clients and listen to what they say and think and feel. At the same time, we have to have a thick skin and kind of stay the course on what our own personal art goals are. We all have this direction that we want to take our work, and eventually, if we go there, the clients will follow and they will hire you for what you do. But at the same time, you have to keep the clients happy in the meantime. So it's such an interesting tightrope that we walk.
Yeah. And we do have to learn as we go. And as we're learning, we kind of have these moments that just stand out. I don't think there's one specific moment, but there's a series of moments. And when it comes up, that light bulb goes off, it's an aha moment, and all of a sudden we make a change and things really start to spiral in a good way for our business and our photography. Can you recall a time and bring us to a story where you had an aha moment?
Well, I guess for me, like, I'm a very technical photographer. Like, I'm kind of a nerd that way. I love taking control of the situation and busting out new techniques and stuff. And because I shoot so many different things, like, I guess I have a different aha moment for my landscape photography versus my portrait photography. With portraits, I guess it was the first time that I really dominated the light, where I do lots of athlete shoots, and I love to set up several speed lights and really create a bunch of drama and shadow and texture and stuff with my portraits. And the first time that I successfully created that Joe McNally dominated light look, it was just like, oh, I want to do this forever. This is just the most fun thing in the world, to really dominate the light. So working with speed lights, that was when I finally got it. That was really an aha moment for me. With landscapes, everybody starts off taking pictures on their trips, and they take them in the middle of the day, and and you end up getting those. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's an all right shot. You get lots of those, but the first time that you do it with a storm front moving in at sunset, and you get those really awesome dramatic clouds, and you take a photo and you look at the back of your camera and you're like, my God, I should work for National Geographic. I am amazing. And it's the first time that you realize that interesting landscapes require interesting skies and interesting weather patterns. That was my aha moment, is like, I don't need to be taking photos just whenever I'm in the mood. I need to be taking photos when nature is in the mood. And that was kind of my aha moment for that. So
that's awesome. I mean, you're getting them all over the place and catering to a lot of listeners out there all at once. So I do appreciate it. That's fantastic. Yeah. Similarly to the aha moment, we have these I made it moments where we kind of feel like that publication that happened was kind of a wow factor for our career, and feeling like, man, what I'm doing is working and it's the right thing to be doing. Can you recall a time where you felt a little bit like that?
Well, part of being an artist and part of being an obsessed artist is never thinking that you've made it. Because I feel like the moment that you say, I've made it, is the minute that you stop improving. that's when all improvement stops and it halts, because you start to believe all those nice comments that you get on Facebook and social media where like, oh, you're so amazing, you're so talented. And the minute you're like, I kind of am amazing, I kind of am talented, the minute you do that, I feel like you no longer have the fire to improve. And so I do my best to not believe all those nice things that people say. And I'm just like, well, except for, I don't like the sharpness in this corner. This corner is just terrible. So I have to improve. Like you have to be motivated to improve, or else improvement stops. And so for me, I don't know that I will ever make it in my mind. So yeah, I haven't made it. Yeah, otherwise, because I want to get better. So I'm not going to, say that I've made it.
I love that kind of response where it's exactly what you're saying. Just, I don't want to make it because it's too scary to think to get to that point. Even the big names, the Joey L's and the Joe McNally's, like they probably wouldn't say they've made it.
Right.
And that's why they're so amazing in doing what they're doing.
It's also probably a fairly miserable a miserable existence, because I'm never going to be the guy that like puts his feet up and drinks a drink on the beach because, I made it. Let's enjoy this. I'm never going to have that moment where where I get to bask in the glory that is Nick Page. I'm always going to be like, oh, I've got to do this better. And I'm going to be beating myself up for the rest of my life. But hopefully I'll be pretty amazing while I'm beating myself up.
Well, I think you're pretty amazing. I hope Photo World agrees. I mean, you're doing all these different podcasts and, you have a nice variety of what you do with your work, and you get to travel and, like just some really amazing stuff happening. And it's because you won't settle, and you keep pushing forward. So I love that you're not settling and you're inspiring us out here.
Yeah, I kind of feel like because my pre-photography life wasn't filled with like going to college and pursuing my photography career. My pre-photography life was spent doing hard labor, manual jobs for very little money. And because of that, it gives me perspective. And I feel like I am the luckiest guy in the world. I get to take pretty pictures for a living, and people pay me for it. Like that, if you just stop and think about that, I literally take pictures for a living. That in itself is a blessing that I never foresaw for myself. I am so lucky, and a lot of people listening to this show, we are all so lucky, and we need to stop and appreciate that and realize that, there are occupations out there that are far more hazardous. They actually like sweat and bleed at their jobs. And we are so lucky. We need to stop and appreciate it and not take ourselves too serious because of that. And when you stop taking yourself serious, then you're actually free to improve because, well, if I fail, it's not a big deal. It's a bad picture. Whoop-de-doo, So not taking yourself too serious, I think, is a great exercise for a lot of photographers.
And not just photographers. I can recall a time when I used to wait tables and I used to care about it. And some guy told me, he's like, just stop caring, dude. And I just did my job. I wasn't that I was careless about it, but I just stopped focusing on, missing somebody's order the wrong way or something so trivial and non-threatening to my existence, And once I gave that up, once I got out of my own way, things started to change and the tips were rolling in and I was like, how am I doing this? It's the same thing with our photography. It's the same thing with our interaction with clients. It's the same thing with our business. You have to be authentic. You have to be real. You can't wear a mask for everything, and you just keep going. We're in a digital age. We're in a social media, fast-paced world. We all got to keep moving. So just do it. Quit on the hang-ups. It's not worth it. So.
Exactly. And the client doesn't want to work with somebody that, thinks that they are the bee's knees. They don't want to work with somebody who's super egotistical. So why not just be lighthearted and relax and let your photo shoot with them be about them instead of this amazing photographer that they're honored to get to pay to take their photos? Like, just people appreciate photographers that are more lighthearted don't take themselves too serious, and they're just there for the client rather
Right.
than for themselves.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh man, I could talk about this all day, but we're gonna move along. We're gonna move along. Keep out the other good info coming here. So Nick, during your photography career so far, what is the best advice that you've ever received?
Well, um, I'm guessing people have picked this up about me, but I'm not the most business-oriented person in the world. I'm all about the art, man, and so for me, the hardest thing was pricing and all of that stuff. And probably some of the best advice that I've received in that regard, and this is an area that I need advice and needed advice, is is the perceived value and the Walmart mentality. And I've I've experienced it in my own business where when I was charging ridiculously low fees for everything, people treated me worse.
Yeah.
They weren't appreciative that they were getting this amazing deal. They were hiring me because I was cheap, not because they wanted me. And now as my prices start to get up there a little bit, and they're still quite low. I'm not going to lie and say I'm middle of the pack even. I'm there where I'm comfortable now, but it's certainly not on the high end. Uh, Now that I'm charging more, they're hiring me for me, and they're hiring me because they want my photography, not because I'm a good deal or I'm cheap. And they're not that they treat me better because of it. People, humans in general, when they shop at Walmart, unfortunately, they don't treat the people that work at Walmart very well.
Right.
And you can either choose to be treated like the person that's a cashier at Walmart, or you can choose to be treated like, I don't know, a photographer that, is good at their craft. And there's just that perceived value where if you're charging ridiculously low prices, people look at that and they say, well, something has to be wrong. Otherwise, it wouldn't be cheap. And that's just the mentality that people have when they're shopping for a photographer is they they look at the price tag and they say, well, he must be good because look at how much he charges. And this could be some guy shooting an auto with a pop-up flash, and if they charge, $10,000 for a wedding, people must say, well, it's got to be worth it. Look at what he charges, and people pay it. And so just overcoming that hurdle, I think, is one of the things I'm working on, and it's some of the best advice that I've received.
Yeah, I would agree. When I was doing the same thing, starting out, and Photo World, a little side note here, everybody does start. So if you have to start at a certain price and you feel like it's a little low and you're dealing with this, that's your growing pains. Just go for it, push through, but then move it up a little bit and find your value and be realistic about your value. But
And once you raise your value, people start hiring you for you.
Right.
And that's the best feeling in the world when you show up for a wedding, you're saying, okay, well, I was thinking about doing this, and they just look at you and they're like, Nick, you just do what you do because we love what you do. We're going to trust you and just do it.
Right.
And that is the most liberating, awesome place to be. And that only comes when you raise your prices enough to weed out all of the people that are just looking for a deal.
Right, right. And there are so many times that even when you have your pricing, you get people trying to undercut you for, oh, it's a Sunday wedding. It's like, yeah, but my bills don't change on Sundays, like,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I don't know where you're getting this idea. I don't do that when I go to the gas station, like I've never bought groceries cheaper because it's a certain day of the week, like where does this
Exactly.
come from, so,
Exactly.
and that's the problem with service industries, like what we do as photographers, where we have a different perception from our clients. But as you get to that bracket, and here's a little piece of advice on getting to that bracket where your value and your price and your personality all merge together in why you're being hired. I was told this. I really wish I could remember who told me this, but once somebody books you for your highest package, whether it's a portrait session, a senior session, a wedding, once somebody books you for your highest package, you're already worth that to someone out there. So raise your prices a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, 25, $50, but start climbing that ladder. And then when somebody purchases your highest package, you've now hit that mark and raise it up. And you'll find as you keep doing that, and I did that for about 3 years before I came to my pricing bracket where I'm at now. And before it was just, oh, I'll do it for this much. Okay, I'll give you that deal. But once I did that approach, it's becoming easier and easier for people going, no, we want this one, the really high one. Like, we want everything included. We want the second photographer. It's not because they're crazy. It's because you're putting out the work, you're putting out the personality, and you're attracting the proper clientele. And that's how niching down works. And you have to niche down. So, sorry, now I'm on a tangent.
That's good. Tangents are good. That's when the juicy stuff comes out.
Yeah. Nick, do you have an app or an internet resource that you think Photo World could benefit from knowing about?
I would have to say improvephotography.com.
Boom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is a paid advertisement. It's not really paid, but obviously we have podcasts there. We got video tutorials there. We have several writers that are writing awesome blogs all the time for all different skill levels. It's a really cool website. You got to check it out.
Yeah, Jim Harmer, his whole team, everything he's got going on is awesome. I mean, we had Jim on the show a little while back. I was interviewed on the Improved Photography podcast, or a part of the panel for that day. Man, that was embarrassing. No, I'm just kidding. I was totally out of control. I didn't know what to do. But no, it was great. And they have so much good information. So Improved Photography, definitely a great spot to go. And Photo World, we'll have this link, all of Nick's links on the show notes page where you can find everything at takeandtalkpics.com. Nick, we're getting close to the end. I got one little gear techie question for you, and then we'll get to our ending here. What's one piece of gear that you could not live without, aside from the camera? Because we definitely need that.
Well, because I'm such a dual purpose photographer, since I do landscapes and I do so many portraits, for the portrait, I'm going to have two. For the portrait side, I love my speed lights. I do lots of natural light photography, but where I feel like the Nick Page signature photos come from is when I bust out the speed lights and the modifiers and I dominate the light that is there. So speed lights would be for the portrait side. For the landscape photography side, I mean, you have to say tripod, right? Like, I love night photography. I love waterfalls, and it's just not possible without a tripod unless you have nerves of steel and you can just handhold at 3 seconds, which I don't think many people can. So tripod for landscape for sure.
Specifically, what kind of speed lights do you use, and what kind of tripod do you use?
Well, I am a big fan of the Yongnuo speed lights. You can get into a manual speed light, meaning no ETTL, for like $65 now.
Right.
And the triggers, I used to use the Pocket Wizards, and I haven't used them in over a year now because I switched over to the Yongnuo ones that they're faster to set up. They're ETTL and high speed sync, and they're like $65-$70 for a pair. And so I'm using the Yongnuo stuff for all my speed lights and triggers and stuff, and couldn't be happier with them. Yeah. I've had a couple explode on me, which isn't the best experience in the world. It's kind of smelly, but they've served me pretty well.
Yeah, I had a SB900 explode on me, and you take when I got it, a $600 flash versus a $60 flash, I'd rather go with the 60 popping off on me there. So
exactly, and like I owned 5 of them for the price of maybe 1.5 speed lights, Canon or Nikon brands.
Right. So what's that tripod you got going?
I use the Enduro stuff. It's
same here.
It's such a good price to quality ratio. They're fairly affordable, and the price is like half of what a comparable name brand one is. So I really like the Enduro stuff.
Yeah, they do a great job over there. So before we wrap it up, can you please share with Photo World one parting piece of guidance, and then the best way that we can reach you, whether it be your website or some sort of social media, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, well, my one piece of advice, if I could boil everything that I'm all about into one sentence, it would probably be to totally immerse yourself in your craft. And what I mean by that is to spend every waking moment you can either doing your photography, editing your photography, watching and looking at other people's photography, or learning about photography and watching tutorials. If we spent as much time working on our craft as we do watching television and playing video games and doing all those things that don't progress us in any way, if we spent all of that time in getting better at our craft, we would all be masters in no time. because that 10,000 hours is really attainable if you just apply your days to it. So I'm totally immersing yourself in your craft. That's the key to getting good.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, so if anybody wants to find more about me, you can find me at nickpagephotography.com, or you can go over to facebook.com/nickpagephotography, and I'm there. Or you can just do a search for Nick Page on Facebook and look for the giant goatee, because that's kind of my signature right there.
Yeah. It's a good look, and it's definitely artistic, so I like it.
Exactly. And plus, when I'm pondering things, I can stroke it like this. I'm stroking my beard as we speak.
Well, Photo World will have these links and the other social media links to find Nick and what he's doing and following along with his work, because it is awesome stuff, and it's going to be great inspiration for you out there and what you're doing, especially with the variety that he has. But Nick, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your time and your great value with Photo World today. Photo World thanks you, and happy shooting.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Hey Photo World, do you ever need a source on where you can find a way to get your travels in order? BestTravelForLess.com is the place to go. I use them for all my travel booking needs, for whether it be a destination wedding or just to get away. You can find their information directly on the affiliates page over at takeandtalkpics.com, or reach out right away through BestTravelForLess.com. Photo World, takeandtalkpics.com. Thank you again for joining us today, and we really appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you share this with your friends and photo family out there. We'll see you next time. This is Rob Kruger. Happy shooting.